ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 6 of the VROOM podcast. I'm your host, Wills Jones, along with my co-host, Simon Martel. How's it going, Simon?
It's going pretty well. How about you?
Not too bad. Was able to get out for a nice bike ride today. Nice day here in Ottawa.
Yeah, the summer weather is definitely hitting strong. I'm definitely enjoying it.
It's good to be able to get out and about. It's even
Yeah.
better to be able to watch Formula One cars drive around the tiny streets of Monaco.
Man, at this point, are they even driving? It seems like they're putting about.
Man, they're just tiptoeing around in those cars.
Yeah, well, every time I look at it, it's like it's slow, and then you'll see their top speed at the tunnel is like 300 kilometers an hour, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess it's not that slow.
Yeah, it's just slow because they're like getting on the brakes right away. They hit the speed trap and it's bang, braking.
What always surprises me every time is how people are excited for it. And then there's literally, it happens every year. There's like one or two overpass and that's it. And we'll see the same like pass on repeat for the whole of the race. And then for every like race replay, it's only those two moments.
And like, it's true. Everybody always gets super excited. And then the race comes and you get 3 laps in and they go, nobody's passed yet. Monaco's so boring. Why is it on the schedule? Like, oh, come on. Enjoy the show.
No, I definitely agree. Like, I like when people, kind of talk about something has to be changed. And I wouldn't be against kind of change of maybe they figure out a way to make the track wider or, build an extension on the sea or something. I don't know. But it's definitely at a point where the cars are too big for the size of the circuit. And it's a very like not surprising result of the racing product that we get,
Yeah. And that like it too shows that even when the track is that tight and it's that technical to get around, even making a pass on that track is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think this is something we can go back on because we kind of saw from different drivers completely different mentality about like how to get about and figure out what they're going to do. But I guess before we start talking about the race itself, which had pretty great results, like maybe a boring race, but I was personally very happy with the final standings. It's a perfect standing in my opinion for any F1 fan right now. We can talk about free practice. You want to start with that?
Yeah, so we can start with practice. What really stood out to me is like the Ferraris just seemed quick around that track all weekend.
You know what though? I think the funniest thing to say is that they were good at being slow. And
I kind of think that's
what it is at Monaco.
Yeah, I think because they have a slightly underpowered engine, assumingly, they were just able to get on the gas sooner and harder than everybody else at Monaco, so they were able to be faster.
Yep, exactly. So definitely agree. I was looking at those practices and I was amazed at how competitive Ferrari looked. They looked like they were doing a title race. They were up there like every second pass, improving their time, like really pushing. And it was great to see. It's good to finally have some different people fighting for the podium, and it just makes for good racing.
Oh, 100%. And I think too, like nothing better than watching Monaco where there's a red car running around at the front of the grid. Like for me, I think that's pretty nostalgic for a lot of Formula One fans.
Yeah, definitely agree. I'll have to come out though, because I think I'm gonna say it sooner or later, but I'm not a Ferrari fan. I think they're way too proud of themselves. They haven't put any results on the track in like 15 years. I just think they're way overblown, and so it's good for them to just bring some pressure on the Mercedes, switch it up. But I'd much rather other teams than Ferrari right now be doing it. But it's good to see other teams being able to compete. Other than that, during free practice, I think another thing that we kind of noticed, which was surprising, was how Mercedes didn't really have any like pace. It didn't seem like they were able to do their usual sandbagging and then, oh well, we're actually the best car at the best circuit, like every time.
Yeah, so they only cracked the top three once, and that was Valtteri Bottas. And then Lewis, I think his top qualifying or practice position was fourth or fifth. So it like those Mercedes were not are not set up well to run around the very tight, twisty, tight radius corners at Monaco.
Yeah, and I think it's something we're going to see as well next race, where we're still in the road circuit, if I'm not wrong. And so, yeah, Azerbaijan. So it's probably
Yeah,
going to be
it's still a
something.
very tight road circuit.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully it's we still see some good racing and not domination from Mercedes. We'll see what happens. And another thing that came out of free practice that was definitely surprised was the difference in pace between the two McLaren teammates.
Yeah, and it like you listen to Ricardo's interviews afterwards, and he kept saying, I knew I was getting, some corners right and some places right, but I could never string together a full lap. And he just I feel like he says the same thing after every session. I feel like I nailed at least 3 corners a lap, but never strung together a full lap.
I hope this is not the start of a mental collapse, because Ricardo had been having some great performance last year, and he's a great person to have on the grid. So I hope he get kind of settled in, because as we saw, his teammate is definitely settled in at McLaren and he's being dominant. So I hope Ricardo can find his place, and as well as his pace.
Yeah, I don't like he's such a talented driver. We know he has the skill and the ability, and it just none of it is showing. And
Yeah,
he said all along too, like he's setting his car up exactly the same way as Lando. He said that over the Monaco Grand Prix weekend. So there's part of me wondering if he should maybe try and venture out and figure out what setup works best for him, because potentially the team is running a favorable setup to Lando right now, just because Lando's the best driver. So if he could get, his engineers to maybe change some things on his car for him and the benefit of Daniel, I think that would do him wonders.
yeah, I definitely agree. And I don't know if you remember, but I came in last week very bullish on Daniel. I was putting it up there, beating Norris and being very spectacular with his car. Well, I was right about the car, but definitely wrong about the driver. So that's on me. Hopefully, I have better luck next time trying to guess. But it kind of leads us to the qualifying, which is honestly like probably one of the most important qualifying sessions of the season, just because of how Monaco is once the race starts. And it was a very entertaining session. I was up early enough in the morning. I watched the whole thing live on TV, and I was really happy I did.
There nothing in motorsport compares to Monaco, and I think very little in sports in general is on the tier of just be on it precision as an athlete that the Monaco Grand Prix is.
Yeah, and I think
It's
it's
so
oh, sorry, go
intense.
for it. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
and
done.
it's interesting to see as well because um like you said, it's so intense, and it's something where um it's hard, I think, for first timer and for people just discovering the track to get used to it, because it's how different it is to everything else on the calendar. I'm just looking at the qualifications, then we can kind of start with Q3, like Q3 or Q1, whatever, the first
Q1, yeah.
tier. um Out of the 5 drivers eliminated, only one pretty much is not a rookie, which is a pretty crazy statistic.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, Schumacher crashed, so he couldn't even qualify. um, Mazepin finished 19th. Then you had Latifi, Alonso, and Tsunoda that all got eliminated. Disappointing result for Alonso. Clearly, he's had success in the past here, but definitely still getting to grips with his car. But other than
Yeah, and
that,
I
all the
mean,
rookies on the field. Oh, sorry, go for it.
Look at where Ocon finished compared to Alonso. Like
Yeah,
there's pace in that car around that track for sure.
yeah, and I think we can talk about Alpine a bit later, but there's definitely something weird going at Alpine because they have weekends where they show a lot of promises, and then weekend where they kind of just disappear out of view, and we'll have to figure out, we'll have to see how they can develop and maybe like solidify their position. But yeah, so in the first qualification round, um, 4 out of 5 people eliminated were rookies. So Monaco isn't an easy place to start racing, especially when it's your first time, I think.
For sure. And I mean, this is related to the race, but we can touch on it now for how challenging this track is for rookies. Is who's it? Nikita Mazepin couldn't change the engine mode settings during the race. He was too afraid to take a hand off the steering wheel to change the knob.
Oh my
So
God.
it just showed over the team radio, they ask him to put they say the code and everything, and he goes, "What?" And he say the code again. He's like, "I'm sorry, what do you want me to do?" And they tell him what to do, and he goes, "This is fucking Monaco. Are you crazy? Like, I'm not taking my hand off the wheel."
Yeah, he's gonna have to wait until he pits halfway through.
Exactly. I'll change it then.
Sadly, it's right now in the car he has, it doesn't really make a difference between a 1 extra lap or 2 extra lap at the end of the race.
Honestly, yeah.
So that was our first round of qualification, and then the next one was kind of not that surprising. I think the one I was very surprised to see was Ricardo getting out at 12. So like I just said, I had high hopes for Ricardo, and definitely he had difficulty all weekend with his car, and so he could only put his car at number 12, and then he got out at Q2.
Yeah, I think for me the most surprising part of Q2 was Seb Vettel getting into Q3.
Yeah, that was huge. I got very
That was what I
excited.
was most excited about.
I'll say it just before we go to Q3, but something I was very excited and a lot of people were happy about was Giovinazzi putting his car on all the way to Q3, which was very exciting for all the Italians out there and for people that are fan of long, luscious hair.
Oh, I am a big fan of long, luscious locks.
But there you go. So Giovinazzi, clearly throughout this season so far is kind of starting to perform better than Raikkonen. So I'm happy for him because he's not necessarily a paid driver. I think he's fighting to keep his seat every year. And so he's starting to show some great success and some great performance. So very happy for him to see him where he is going right now.
Yeah, and it too, like he can use the position he has if he keeps getting like good results and maybe Sainz doesn't work out at Ferrari or he chooses to, move to another team. Giovinazzi is occupying the Ferrari contract seat. So he is their, I think, third driver on the grid with a Ferrari contract. So, they are very much, I think, keeping him there sort of as a just in case if one of their two, main drivers shits the bed, they can move him in quickly. He's got F1 experience. He knows the engine, which is pretty important. And the Alphas run all last year's spec Ferrari parts. So he's already pretty much familiar with the car.
And he's Italian, so that's always great.
I know they got to keep him there for the pride.
So yeah, and then finally in Q3, I want to have some honorable mention. So you said it already, but Vettel P8, very great result. Finally seeing him kind of getting to grip, showing his experience around Monaco. So I was very happy. Gasly P6. That's the same car that his teammate finished P16. So 10th more position than his teammate. Gasly is killing it. I'm very happy to see it.
He is a insane driver. Did you see actually during the race, Mercedes tweeted Verstappen leads and Hamilton is following Gasly in the second Red Bull.
Yeah. Crazy.
They took it down pretty quickly, but I thought that was a pretty funny tweet.
Man, what if, huh? Could you imagine if Red Bull could have just had the patience to let Gasly settled in? I don't know if it would have worked. Maybe they would have destroyed him even more, but it's just a great story to see him perform the way he is at AlphaTauri.
I almost like it better that he's performing well at AlphaTauri,
Yeah,
just as like an FU to Red Bull.
exactly. He's just showing him like, you didn't believe in me. Well, I guess they kind of did because they still offered him like a seat, but he's just showing him like, look, this is what I can do. This is like, and he's outperforming that car every single weekend.
Mm-hmm. He overdrives that car and overdrives it to perfection every week.
Yeah,
he gets the most he can out of that vehicle.
Yeah, definitely. You kind of alluded to it that Hamilton was following Gasly, but another special mention, maybe not for good, but Hamilton finishing 7th on the grid in qualifying hasn't happened in a while. It's a rare sight and
very rare.
Got strongly out qualified by his teammate Bottas. And yeah, pretty crazy things. I think we should talk about what happened during Q3, kind of controversial for a little bit, and then I think people realize quickly what happened. But Leclerc finished first, but kind of because he crashed, which is a pretty funny thing to say, but he had the fastest lap, and then everybody was setting up for their their last lap. They had the batteries charged, they had the tires warmed up, so everybody was going for their flying lap, and Leclerc hit a wall, red flagged the session, and so nobody really was able to finish their last lap they were trying to put up. So I think the results could have been a lot different if that hadn't happened.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this before we came on, and I was kind of thinking, if he hadn't crashed, I think Leclerc, Verstappen, Bottas, Sainz, and Hamilton may have gotten in front of him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Verstappen was looking like he was going to do a faster lap. Sainz definitely felt, and that's the way he was saying, that he had a faster lap in him and that he was like making it happen.
Yeah,
I don't know if Hamilton
over the
had
team
it,
radio, yeah.
Yeah, because Hamilton had difficulty all weekend. I could have seen Norris go ahead as well. But yeah, definitely a different order. Wouldn't have been surprising at all if that crash hadn't happened, but it did happen. And it kind of led up to an interesting thing happening to the race. I don't know. I think we can kind of move on to the race now. And so the crash, what happened with the crash was that Leclerc hit a wall, bounced on a corner and then hit the right side of his car directly in a wall and destroyed his right front suspension, destroyed his front wheel, destroyed his right rear suspension, destroyed a lot of things in his cars. And so Ferrari had to repair a lot of it. But they couldn't repair all of it. Do you want to talk about kind of how the gear penalty works and the penalties for replacement?
Yeah. So after qualifying, the cars enter what's called parc ferme. So basically, you can't change like vital components of the car. So you can't touch the engine, gearbox, and other components that have wear that's monitored throughout the season. So those parts can't be changed, and there are several other little bits in there. So when Leclerc crashed, the side impact of that often does do quite a bit of damage to a Formula One gearbox. And so Ferrari checked over the car and wanted to make sure that there was nothing wrong with it. It seemed like nothing was wrong with it, because if they did have to change a part, it would have dropped them back 5 grid places, meaning Leclerc would have started in
No, even worse than that. He would have started in the pits. If they
it's a grid penalty if they can get the car finished in time.
Okay.
And then if they're still working on it by the time everybody's getting ready to go on the grid, then he would have had to start from the pits. So they thought they had, dodged a bullet with being able to get him out. They did all the checks. It didn't look like anything was damaged too badly. They figured he may have to limp it around during the race a little bit, but he should still be able to run. And it's Monaco. Nobody's going to pass him. So they go out onto the out lap of the race to get to the grid, and Leclerc's gearbox just dies.
First lap on Sunday. And so, do you agree with what they decided to do? I think it is the right decision at the end of the day, personally, that it is kind of a gamble they had to do, where it's like, if they open it up and they look at it, well, they'll automatically take positions. They're probably not even going to get any points because nobody passes in Monaco. Well, if they think it's gonna survive, they start first, they run with the risk, and then if they get past once or twice, they still finish with a lot of points. It was a tough position for them.
And like, I've been asking myself this, and I like change my mind every time I think about it. I woke up this morning like, man, they should have changed his gearbox. And then at lunch today, I was like, nah, like, I can understand why they didn't. And then, so I like, what do you think they should have done?
I think they did exactly what they should have done. I don't think changing the gearbox, especially here at Monaco, would have helped at all. He would have dropped in a position where he couldn't really have passed anyone. Probably would have ended up with no points. I think, especially a team where they know they had somebody like right behind him. Science finished fourth place, so they knew he had some support. If ever he has a problem, maybe they can help his other teammate. And it kind of what happened. I think for once, the strategy tacticians kind of played the right cards.
Yeah, if I say any more on this, I'm gonna change my mind again. But yeah, I don't know. It's such a hard call to make for that. Like, I don't think there's really any right decision in that sort of situation. Like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, it really is kind of what keeps racing interesting. At least it's not a it's not a easy answer.
Yeah,
Black
it's
or
not
white.
like the 80s where they could just go, it's fine. We have 8 more of those just for this weekend.
Yeah.
So
All
another
right.
thing that I just want to touch on
Yeah.
before we move further is Mick Schumacher not qualifying, but still getting to race.
Yeah.
Because like, they were way back in the day when they had pre-qualifying and stuff, and there were like a ridiculous amount of teams and like single car entries just trying to get in for maybe one race. So back in those days, you had to qualify for qualifying, and then you qualify for the race. So I just kind of had it in my head when I heard that he wasn't qualifying. I didn't think he'd be racing. Like, that was my first thought. Well, if you don't qualify, you can't race. It was
Yeah.
kind of where my head went to, but obviously F1 has changed since I last read the rules on qualifying.
Man, could you imagine that if that was still the case? I feel like Haas could be kicked out of, of so many races in a season.
Yeah, I could
It,
kind of go bad for them.
yeah, it would kind of kill their effort. Especially, I'm in the clan of I'm just happy to see at least 20 cars on the grid. I think it's good to have those numbers. Um, Kind of irrelevant, Haas. Like, look, if ever we see them perform, if they do a points finish at one point this season, like it's gonna be pretty crazy. Like it's gonna be a pretty crazy sports moment that that car can do points. So I'm
Yeah,
happy they're there, and
Mick
that it's
Schumacher
still a
at the German
possibility.
Grand Prix.
Imagine. Oh,
Mick Schumacher puts it pole at the German Grand Prix.
okay, we're not talking about miracles here. Like
I
they
don't
need
know.
to
You
get a
said
new
get
car.
points. Those are on the same level for me.
Yeah, no, Mick just goes and takes a Mercedes and paints it with a Russian flag on it, and then he goes.
Yes.
um. So, all right, we can kind of talk quickly about how the race went. I think it's Monaco, so there's literally like not too many events we can talk about. We can go through it chronologically. Um. So before even the race starts, Leclerc has been eliminated, did not start. Didn't even know that was a thing. Did you know that existed? I learned this today that the DNS was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Thought they would just have called it DNF, like, but no, it's a
No,
DNS.
man, he didn't even start.
He didn't even start. Like that hurts. um, so Leclerc didn't start. So who was lining up? Yeah, so it was Verstappen, Bottas, Saints, Norris, the first four. And you got to give it to Verstappen. He had a great start and was able to block off Bottas because Bottas had like a really good start with his car, and I think could have taken the pole if Verstappen hadn't been quick to cut him off.
Yeah, and like Max, who's usually like the starting specialist, he's the
Yeah,
guy who like almost always gets the jump. Yeah. It was pretty surprising. He got a lot of wheel spin off the line and had to pretty aggressively cut over to squeeze Valtteri out from getting past him there.
yeah, definitely Monaco's wall helped him on this one in the narrowness of
Oh
of
yeah.
the track. Yeah. um, And so the race kind of starts right away. Not too many things happen. A couple laps went by. I just want to
I
say,
mean, we can talk about Mick Schumacher's
oh,
absolute
exactly what I was
dive
going.
bomb
Yeah,
on
we
Nikita
got the
Mazepin.
similar brainwaves here. Yeah,
Oh,
Nick fucking sent it. It was great.
like that was like a I don't like my teammate sort of pass. I don't want to infer anything, but man, that was a little nasty.
It was it was kind of dangerous. Both cars could have been out
Oh yeah, like it.
if one of the drivers that had bad reflex.
Mm-hmm. And
But
like Mick got all the way up on the curb to get past him too.
yeah,
It was a pretty tight pass.
it was a great place to pass though. Good fit. Like I don't know how many other places you can pass. Like, is there a DNS zone? I imagine the tunnel.
Um, I think no, I think the DRS zone is the main straight.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, like
So
the starting, like the cross line.
yeah, the
Yeah.
start finish straight. So I think like the best places to pass at Monaco, I would say, would be the hairpin
Yeah.
coming out of the tunnel.
Yeah. That's about
And
it.
I
Like,
think like at Rascas, it slows
yeah.
down enough that I think you can put in a pretty good pass there at the very last corner.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, what did we see? Like three passes, two? Not
Well,
even.
we saw the Schumacher Mazepin pass,
Yeah.
and then there was the Vettel Gasly pass that
Yeah, I
we
was gonna
got
say.
teased with, and I don't
Yeah.
think anyone has seen it yet.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Well, before, yeah, so um, kind of a master class this weekend for Aston Martin. Way to show up. They really like played well, and they got a lot of position by undercutting in the pits, and that's kind of I think those are the two drivers that passed the most is Vettel and Stroll.
Yeah, those cars had such an impressive race. I think they did so well.
Yeah,
Um, and there's got to be something about casino, Monte Carlo, Monaco, James Bond, Casino Royale.
yeah,
There's
there
got to
you
be something
go.
going on there. They were just
Yeah,
feeling extra special, extra good about themselves.
Lawrence Stroll was speaking in their ear like,
Did
you got to do
you see the
this.
size of his yacht?
No,
The bloody huge one right in the middle of the bay was his.
did he brought one to Monaco?
Yeah.
What a baller! Oh man,
He
of
has
course
like
he did.
20 staff on it just for him.
Oh my god! And then Lance went for the post-race celebrations.
Oh, for sure.
um, so talking about undercut, and this is why I brought up Aston Martin. One of the other passes that we saw was Vettel successfully undercutting. Uh, who was it? Gasly,
Yeah, Gasly and um
Hamilton.
Hamilton. Yeah, he got in front of Hamilton there as well.
Yeah, so Gasly and Hamilton. So Vettel and the Aston Martin like strategy like tacticians managed to undercut them in the pits and pass two of them at once. And it's kind of where we got teased was that Vettel's exit from the pits. He was able to kind of right as he exited the pits, Gasly was right side by side with him, and then you had Hamilton right on Gasly's tail. And so it was a pretty great moment of, okay, let's see, what the order kind of ends up being. Because if Gasly was able to pass and then Vettel had to go behind, or maybe Vettel wasn't going to be able to slot in, it would have went back to his own position. Could have been great racing, but you
Yeah,
know
and
what?
even there could have been
Yeah,
some juicy scraps for Lewis to pick up. If those two get in a bit of a contact, bump each other around a bit, opens up a door for Lewis somewhere, man, that's two easy places. So
and then
I was
finally,
definitely excited to see that group of three cars together.
yep. And finally, what did we see? No, we saw Lance Stroll. At least the
Oh
feed
yeah.
I saw was that well, Vettel was coming up and they
Yeah,
were
we're
about
getting
to, contact and race. Cut
amazing
away,
action.
directors. Cut away, show Lance Stroll just bumping a wall. Ooh.
And it's like the most iconic place, I think one of the most iconic places to see two Formula One cars screaming up towards you is up the hill at Monaco. And you're about to see a pass there, and it's so amazing. And then they go, "Hey, here's a replay of a guy hitting a wall."
So that was a great meme. I've been seeing that around the internet a lot of historical F1 moments, and oh, the contact's about to happen. And, Lance Stroll.
Well, then, what I'm almost more upset about is that we were about to get a replay of it, and then as they're in the replay, and at pretty much the same point in the replay where they cut to something else, they cut to Sergio Perez going into the pits. Like, what? I just want to see a pass at Monaco, please. That's all I'm asking. Is it that hard to show?
Yeah, this is the beauty where like now with I'm happy we have all these other technologies like of like the I don't remember the name of the service, but people can subscribe to like the F1 like feed, and you can like directly choose whoever speed you want and watch it on your like cell. And so quickly, if ever you miss a replay that way, you can go on Twitter or Reddit and you'll see the replay. So I saw it, missed it, went on Reddit, and 2 minutes later saw it on board of the exact pass. I was like, oh, okay, well, the director's messed up, but I saw the action.
Yeah, and just to touch on sort of why like the direction messed up, you'd never see that happen at any other Grand Prix, and I think it's such a shame for it to happen at a Grand Prix like Monaco, and it's because Monaco is such a special Grand Prix. There's a special exemption made for the TV broadcast to be an in-house production, so it's a French media company takes it over and they control all the images that you see. So the regular Formula One media team, broadcast team, is still in charge of setting up all the cameras and having them where they want them, and the onboard pictures and all that. They're still in charge of setting those up and everything. But the actual images that we were seeing during the race weren't being directed by Formula One. So I personally think that is something that needs to change.
Oh, I
I
agree.
think
They
it
you saw it as well this weekend. Like there was a lot more like mess up and a lot of missed action and a lot more than usually happens.
Yeah, and I think too, like there's some pretty iconic shots of Monaco that I was kind of waiting to see. And one of them is all the cars bumbling around the hairpin, and I sort of waited for the first lap, and they left that shot up for 6-7 seconds. Like I was kind of waiting, I kind of wanted them to linger there and let you see, most of the field get through, because it's a pretty cool shot in my opinion. You're one of the only times you'll see Formula One cars doing exactly 180 degrees side by side.
Yeah.
It's a pretty iconic shot, and they didn't show it for that long. And then you got a lot of other just shots of like cars, quickly going around corners and bumping off curbs, and it sort of seemed like they were
I was gonna
doing
say
it.
so
It seemed
many
like a
shots of curbs and
yeah,
so many shots of the chicane. Every single like lap was just a chicane. You're like, okay, we're like, we've seen the chicane.
it kind of felt like they were just showing the sort of shots you'd want to see on a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Like, the like just we're just gonna show you the super cool stuff that you would want to see in like the Monaco promo video. Bumping around the curbs, going super fast, tire squeals, lockups, not really actually showing the race.
Yeah. And then I guess the last big event that happened in the race itself was Mercedes and their pit stop. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, so Valtteri comes into the pits to change out his tires, and we've all done it before on a construction project at home. You're with the power drill and you squeeze it a little too fast, and you strip the screw, and your project's kind of fucked. Well, that's exactly what happened to Valtteri's wheel nut. Apparently it was because the engineer had to go in on a bit of an angle because Valtteri stopped a bit too early.
That's what I heard. I heard that Toto blamed Valtteri, and I was like, oh, poor guy,
I
man.
know, like you can't. There's no way you could be
Can't
like,
get a
yeah, well,
break.
the
So
mechanic
absurd.
kind of. Nah. I don't know. It's just such an unfortunate situation, and it too. Like we kept sitting there, and I was watching. I was like, how are they gonna? What are they gonna do? And then it kind of got to like he's sitting still for like 15-20 seconds, and I was like, he's got to be out of the race. Like at this point, it's
Yeah,
over.
yeah, and yeah, and it was pretty crazy to see because they brought the car into the garage. Like he retired, and the wheel was still on. I think they were still working on it at the end of the race. Like
It's one
they
of
had
they're like,
really like
well,
welded it on
we
top of it.
have to get this off somehow.
Get the machete. Let's just cut the axle.
Just plasma torch it, boys. Fuck it.
uh,
I guess
so yeah,
if we're also going to talk about Mercedes pit stops, I mean, Lewis Hamilton got brought in way too early from his point of view.
yeah,
If you want to cover that a little bit, Simon.
yeah. I was gonna say it seems like they like they just had such an off weekend for Mercedes because their strategy was completely wrong. Like the both cars kind of followed each other one after the other, and then yeah, they brought Hamilton first, Bottas was second, and they definitely like at least Hamilton didn't have any problems during his pit stop. But once he came out, he didn't do anything else for the race. He was just like pacing himself. Wasn't really pushing his tires. He wasn't able to undercut anymore. He had to use his pit stop. Wasn't able to pass Gasly. Like yeah, it just seemed like Mercedes was like, well, he kind of stuck there. Let's just go with that. And it's definitely something you heard from Hamilton, which I thought was very like surprising on my part to hear from a guy who seems so competitive, was that he gave up halfway through the race.
Yeah, and it like what was interesting for me is that like after he was pit and got stuck behind Gasly and then stuck behind Vettel as well, he came on the radio and was, why did you pit me, man? I, had life left in these tires. Like I still could have gone longer, blah, 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 blah. And it, obviously we don't get all of the team radio. So I'm kind of wondering if like he made a call in, they were like, how are the tires? And he was like, I can go longer. And I know I heard in an interview with Toto, he said, it was kind of a damned if we do, damned if we don't situation. We weren't sure if putting new tires on, we didn't think it would slow him down as much as it did. It turns out Lewis just wasn't able to ever get the tires up to the temperature that he really needed to push on them, where, he felt he had the tires um before his pit stop to keep pushing and have an optimal range.
Yeah. So that kind of was a surprising ending. 'Cause at the end of the race, Hamilton finished seventh, which is not a place you usually see him. And it definitely isn't good for the overall points for Mercedes, losing a car and then having Hamilton only finish seventh. What else can we talk about during the race? Norris already again, I guess. What an incredible performance. He's he kind of just, he kind of shown and showed why he deserved that contract extension. P3, Monaco, McLaren, pretty much perfect ending for them, especially in a one-off livery.
Oh, I know. A beautiful drive from Lando in a beautiful car from McLaren. I don't think he could have asked for a better Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah, and during the race, watching the race, towards the last like 20 laps, there was some talk from Norris to his engineer that he had some difficulty with his tires. Car was hard to control, and Perez had just pitted, was kind of was starting to push. I thought we were going to see an overlap from Perez, and it just never happened.
Yeah, Lando was able to, I think, hold him off a little bit, keep pushing, eking a bit more out of that car time and time again, just making sure Perez couldn't get, close enough. And you saw what coming down to the end, I think with like 5 laps to go, Perez was like within 3 seconds or something. Like
Yeah. No,
it was
at one
properly
point,
close.
no, I was gonna say at like 10 at 10 laps or whatever. At one point, he was at like 1.1 second. He was like really pushing, almost had him, and then kind of gave up towards the end because he was just like, oh, well, it's Monaco. There's not much left to do. But yeah, I think maybe with a little bit of different circumstances, Lando might have not not have kept that P3, but the way it finished kind of works well for my fantasy league, so I was happy. But I had mixed emotions. I wanted a Red Bull two on the podium for Red Bull would have been really good. I would have been happy for that just to make the championship more competitive. But I'm happy with Lando because he's my turbo driver. He's gonna make me win the league easy. So yeah.
Yeah, man, I should just try and have each team full of Landos. Imagine if you could repeat drivers. Oh, that'd be amazing. I want repeat drivers.
What else is there kind of to talk about? Red Bull had great strategy, I think. They finally had that support driver they wanted. Like Perez was there, was able to, race up on Norris. So keeping some pressure off Verstappen. He only had Sainz to worry about, and he had tons of space. Yeah, I'm happy for Red Bull, happy for Perez. I kind of think he kind of got forgotten at that P4. Like nobody really talked or mentioned him. But great results nonetheless for him.
Yeah, I think it's a good Monaco Grand Prix from Perez. I think for it to be a great Monaco Grand Prix, he has to be on the podium. Just considering the machinery he's in, I think a good race, an okay race is, in the points within, top 5 in that shout. But a great race would be on the podium. And I'm just waiting for, the track where I think he can really like push and get that done.
I don't know. I'm looking at the qualification, quality, and if I'm not wrong, Mercedes Perez qualified P9, finished
Yeah,
P4
he
at Monaco. That is a monster job. That is really impressive.
But I mean, you can have like an amazing drive at Monaco, but if your teammate wins, it doesn't really matter what you've done. I
Very
think
true.
if he does that drive in if he does that drive in any other car, he's like the only person we're talking about. But because his teammates Max Verstappen and because Max won,
Yeah.
well, he should have been on the podium.
Yeah, he should have been there to support him. No, I agree, but happy for him. Like I think Perez, like we say every week at this point, we kind of repeat ourselves, but glad to see him have the results. Um, what else can we say? I think we can kind of go through. I think one of my biggest points of happiness, one of the biggest thing I was like happy to see, was Aston Martin double car points finish. It was just incredible to see. Oh, I was
It was
excited.
amazing. Man, so I love the Sebastian Vettel happy team radio. I
Yep.
I forget what he said, but he crosses the line and they tell him the place. And like every time he just like starts singing a little happy tune. And I'm like, oh, I love it when Seb's happy.
Yeah.
When Seb's happy, I'm happy, man.
Oh, I definitely agree. And it kind of led me to start looking around. Do you wanna know like what the construction championship is looking like right now?
Do
Actually, no, wait,
tell.
before we go there, sorry, I kind of got ahead of myself. Let's just go through all the positions and then we'll go with that. So Verstappen finished first, Sainz, a Ferrari P2. Great results for Ferrari. I think
Huge
that's exactly
results
what they
for
needed.
Ferrari. Yeah.
Very happy for Sainz. Switched teams and he's having success in that team, so that's really good. And then yeah, I don't have anything else to say about Ferrari. The master plan's working out, I guess.
I think
The
just a
Ferrari master
fun
plan.
a fun side note about this podium is that Verstappen and Sainz were teammates and Sainz and Norris were teammates.
Yep.
So it was kind of like a little weird family reunion on the podium.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like you saw Christian Horner like dab up like
Yeah, I give Sainz a little
Sainz,
hug.
like
It was
he
nice to
went,
see.
congrats to them, and like it's crazy to think how much of a small group F1 is at the end of the day. Like
Honestly,
everyone's
yeah.
been everywhere, but
It's really true.
yeah, and then you kind of saw that little bromance reunion, like Sainz and Norris, who were teammates last year at McLaren. Now Sainz on Ferrari, but Norris was P3, and it was great to see both of them just being happy for each other.
How do you
Norris
think
P3.
Netflix is going to portray their relationship?
At this point, they're gonna have to realize that it's real friendship.
I
Oh
know. I
my
feel like
god, my
they're
nemesis
trying
has outscored me. No.
like I feel like they're trying so hard to be like we are best friends that there's no way Netflix can be like yeah, like they hate each other deep down on the inside.
Yeah, just wait until one of them has to like move in a packed area and nudges them, and then they're gonna zoom in, sound effect, bang.
Oh yeah. At the first tap, it's gonna be drama, drama, drama.
Yeah, they're gonna start the music. Um, so yeah, so that was our podium: Verstappen, Sainz, Norris. Great podium. I could have that result any day of the week. I think it's a
I
great
love the
result to
look of
see.
that podium.
It's great to see three different teams on the podium. Is always very nice to see, and people that don't always win all the time. So
Mhm.
I'm excited for Norris to hopefully get a P2 at one point. P1, we can hope this season, because he's at what, two P3 finishes now, or
Two
three?
P3
Like
finishes. He's destined to work his way up that podium.
I think he just needs one or two rainy Grand Prix with a couple of crashes, and it's in reach for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so then Verstappen, sorry, Perez with the Red Bull P4. That's the greatest thing that Red Bull could have had, because they're the only constructor with like their two drivers in the top. So they definitely scored the most during this weekend. Vettel P5, Gasly P6. Best result for AlphaTauri, best result for Gasly this year. I'm just happy to see it. Gasly's a great guy, and he's on my fantasy team, so great results all around. Hamilton P7, Stroll P8. Very happy about Stroll P8. You got to remember he started P13, So
Yeah, it was a
finishing
great
8th
race
is
from Lance Stroll.
very great. Yeah. And I think it just highlights again how good the strategy was for Aston Martin.
Hmm.
Ocon P9. I think at this point we gotta start getting used to seeing Ocon in the top 10. Like he's doing great with that car, so I'm happy to see it. And
Yeah,
then
like it or not, he's up there to stay.
yeah, and then P10 Giovinazzi. So happy to see Gio getting some points. Putting that car up there. So very great results. And then right after Raikkonen. So good for Alfa Romeo. It's good to see them be able to compete. It used to be that they were close competitors with AlphaTauri. I think nowadays AlphaTauri has kind of stepped ahead. Kind of showed that they can do better. But it's great to see it. And then
Yeah, I think Alfa Romeo's definitely dropped back into that sort of Williams and Haas fight.
yeah, compared to last season, I definitely
Yeah.
agree that they're not as competitive, or at least they're not showing as much fight as they did last year.
Hmm.
And then I'll just quickly finish. So Ricardo P12, like we've mentioned before, very disappointing race, bad performance all around. Hopefully you can kind of figure out what's wrong and how to improve for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Man,
And
can
then
we
we've
think
got
about it? Because McLaren needs those points from Ricardo, right? If
yeah,
they
like
want to
if
be
they
able to challenge, stay clearly in front of Ferrari, they need those points from Ricardo, from that second car.
yeah, I honestly think with Ricardo finishing down there, potentially if back to the Ferrari gearbox, potentially if Ferrari fixes that gearbox, they could have two cars finish in the points and Sainz finishing on the podium. Like that's a pretty good haul. That'd
Yeah.
be a pretty decent haul compared to the McLaren haul, but
Yeah.
I digress.
Um, then followed at position 13th, Alonso. Still trying to get to grips, I guess, with his car. He's definitely not impressing anybody so far this season. Disappointing to see from a champion like Alonso. We'll have to see what he can do. Hopefully, he can kind of figure out ways to get used to his car. And then, I mean, the classic Russell Latifi, and then Tsunoda P16, Mazepin, and then Schumacher finishing 18th. I'm sad to see Tsunoda so low. I think he started maybe too strong for his own good. People started hyping him up. And I think it might be hurting him right now because he is a rookie. He has to get used to it. And it's kind of normal, especially in a car like, I was going to say AlphaTauri, but you just saw that Gasly can put it up against the big boys. So, yeah, it's just a rookie, like first season, first couple of races. So hopefully Tsunoda can, kind of figure it out quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I think he definitely flew a little bit too close to the sun and in the first few races
Yeah.
and got everybody's hopes up as to what he was really capable of. But I I also don't think that this is a real demonstration of what Yuki can do. I do think he can definitely get more out of those cars, out of that car. Consistent points finishes for his first season. I don't think you could expect that, but being closer to the top 10, I think is what we can expect, and I think what you can look forward to from Yuki this season.
Um, so yeah, that kind of finishes up the standings for the race. Bottas didn't finish, and then Leclerc didn't even start. I kind of want to talk about how the standings look for the constructors right now, because at the end of the race, this race was very interesting for how the points kind of got switched around because of such high points finished by like Norris and then Mercedes not getting many points this weekend. I think it's the first time in a lot of years that Mercedes isn't leading the championship. Right now, as we speak, Red Bull Racing Honda is leading the Constructors Championship.
Yeah,
Hallelujah.
and it's a long
Hallelujah.
time since Red Bull has led the championship as well. It's Max's first time leading the championship. Man, this
In
is
his
exciting.
career. How crazy is that?
I know.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, I agree. I'm
cannot wait for Azerbaijan, another track that should suit the Red Bulls and presumably the Ferraris potentially very well again. So
yeah, I'm just hoping we don't get the classic, oh, we're gonna get our hopes up and then Mercedes is gonna crush by the end of the season, which let's not, knock on wood, let's not try to bring it to life, but
yeah,
it's great to see Red Bull right now, first place, followed by Mercedes. This is how close it is. It is separated by one single point. So one fastest lap could be the difference if between winning or losing the construction championship if their season started now, like ended
I
now.
hope
So
I hope it
pretty crazy things
stays.
to see.
I hope it stays that close all throughout
Oh,
the
me too.
season.
Oh, me too. I
Like
agree.
if we get to the last race and it, is coming down to like, oh my God, who has the fastest lap?
It'd be
Could you
good for the
imagine?
sport. It'd be good for everybody. I agree. And especially, you know what though, it would just tease us because then we would go to completely new regulations. And so
Oh
all
yeah.
the progress of making the teams get closer and equal would
Yeah,
get
it would kind
scratched
of blow it
again.
up
But
if it all came down to just one fastest lap point.
um, third place, not surprising, McLaren. Norris is carrying that team on his shoulders.
Yeah,
But
his back's gonna hurt after a while, man.
yeah, McLaren with 80 points, pretty impressive. Like, I'm not saying they're going to catch up to the big twos yet, but if Mercedes has 148 points, McLaren has 80 points, like 68 points. That's a couple first place finishes, but they're not out yet, I guess.
Yeah, it's not like they're ridiculously far out, especially considering like the difference in machinery just for what that Mercedes AMG and the Red Bull cars, just for what those cars are capable of and what they can do. I think that's an amazing place for McLaren, and it reflects in the points as to how good those Red Bull and Mercedes cars are.
And I think this brings back to what I was saying about how important it is going to be for Ricardo to start, scoring those points, because McLaren is actually like able to have some good points right now. If they can have both cars finishing in the points, oh, it's gonna look good. It's gonna be good for them. So hopefully that can start to happen. Ferrari is only 2 points away from McLaren, so it's not like McLaren is sailing ahead alone at third place. Ferrari is right behind with 2 points difference. So that's still completely a toss up for that third place, which I think makes again for great racing, because those two teams seems like they're competitive and they can almost compete with the big dogs this season. So very great to see.
Yeah, it's amazing to see when you know teams like that, they're not going to challenge the big boys every weekend, but every here and then they will spoil a Mercedes or a Red Bull's race, and it's amazing to watch. In my opinion, I love to see it.
Oh, I definitely agree. And then finally, you kind of have that. You have another group, and this is kind of why I was so curious with that. Aston Martin had been struggling recently, and I was wondering, like, oh, last year they were challenging for that third place. Well, this year they're not there yet. They're not challenging for that third place, but they're currently fifth. I think their double points finish they just had was great for them, because they're fifth at 19 points. Right behind them is AlphaTauri with 18 points, and then Alpine with 17. So there's 3 points separating between fifth and seventh position. So if you want some close racing and some close championship, this is incredible for us fans right now. This is really great. And then sadly, you have kind of the back burners. You have Alpha, Williams, and Mercedes and Haas. Alpha has 1 point. Williams has no points, as well as Haas has no points. So it kind of shapes up that so far the construction standing has 4 categories, or I guess 4 tiers. You got the 2 big dogs, then you got McLaren, Ferrari in the race, and then you got Aston Martin, Alpha, and Alpine fighting, and then you got your backbenchers. So I think it's just great. It really makes it a lot more interesting, and every weekend has a lot more consequence right now.
Yeah, true. You've got F1, F1.25, F1.5, and
Yeah,
F1.75 all
yeah,
happening on the
exactly.
same track.
So yeah, I think yeah. So there you go. Hopefully we can keep getting some Mercedes DNFs just to keep it close. And
That would be nice
yeah,
to see. Yeah. Just
poor
before we
Bottas
go,
already 2 DNF this season.
it's not looking good. And that kind of also tosses like any hopes of Valtteri really having a shout at the title or really being able to spoil, you know, Max's chances at the title. Like it you can't have two DNFs
Every
and
time,
fight for a championship.
every year he has the talk, and there's some hope that this year is his, and then doesn't perform or has some bad luck, and yeah, it's
Yeah, man, if Valtteri
there's some
didn't
talk
have bad
starting
luck,
that
he'd
he
have no luck at all.
yeah, there's some talks starting that he might, you know, not have that seat by the end of the season. We'll have to see.
It'd be interesting. And George is a free agent at the end of this season, so
Stop. Oh yeah. All right. I think we have a couple more topics before we wrap it up.
yeah. So do you want to talk about this Mercedes going to court against Red Bull over the wing?
Yeah. So Toto Wolff recently gave an interview talking about um, how he's going to have to start getting into some kind of messy legal proceedings because Mercedes doesn't think it's fair or follows kind of the rules of the sport that Red Bull can still race with the wing that we talked about a lot last weekend. So hopefully, if you don't know what we're talking about, go listen to it because we talk a lot about the flexible wing that kind of is going around some of the rules, bending the rules. But yeah, they're challenging. They're going to protest uh, in court, saying, or court is FIA when we talk about it, or otherwise it's going to be the international like courts for regulations that they
International
think that
litigation court or something.
yeah,
Very
exactly.
boring.
They think that Red Bull shouldn't be allowed to race with the flexible wing as they're currently illegal with the way they flex. And while the FIA has agreed that they're not legal, and so like we said last week, they're going to be changing the way they get tested to prove or to limit that those, you know, like are able to pass the test. Right now, Red Bull's wing has passed those tests. So while not being officially illegal, the performance they have should be illegal in the spirit of the rules. And so that's why Mercedes says they're definitely challenging it. And they think, and they're going to be protesting for those wing not to be raced until the regulations of testing change at the France Grand Prix, I think. So, but at least in a couple of Grand Prix.
And
And yeah,
would I be right to assume that if it is deemed that these wings are illegal, would there be points deductions on Red Bull?
I do not think so because they have been like, it's not like it's been a secret or something that's been discovered. It's been public notice for the last couple of race weekends. And teams are aware that the testing is going to be changing anyways in a couple of races. And I think it's been kind of an unsaid agreement that, look, the FIA got played, or, you know, like we managed to
Yeah.
go around the rules. So fair enough. You have until we change the testing to use the advantage you built, which I think is one of the great thing about F1. It's kind of how we see very not like very great system and great engineering happen is when they're trying to bend those rules. And so I would be surprised. I think if it does work, though, it could leave Red Bull in a pinch with a unusable wing. And then if, you know, they have no alternative, then they would lose points or get grid penalties by racing them.
Very true. Yes.
And so there you go. So that's something that we're going to be able to look out for. I think maybe next week we'll talk about it again if there's any new news that comes out about it. Other than that, Toto Wolff was kind of saying that it's not because they lost at Monaco that they're doing this. It's just because of how they feel the rules are being interpreted. You take that with a grain of salt. You take that as you want. There's definitely some sore loser attitude coming from it, in my opinion. But it's the sport. You saw a lot from every other team last season with the Racing Point at that time looking too much like a Mercedes. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
Very, very, very interesting stuff going on over there. Now, moving from the best team in Formula One to arguably the best driver in Formula One all time. Now, last week we did our Monaco special, and my dad nearly disowned me because we did not talk about Ayrton Senna, the king of Monaco and my dad's all-time favorite driver. So I just want to go over quickly, we missed talking about him last week, but Ayrton Senna is the king, air quotes, king of Monaco. He's won there 6 times in 3 different chassis. Just an amazing talent, an amazing driver, and just he was at home at that track. There's in the 1988 McLaren, I think, there's a video of him basically doing a whole lap one-handed. Just the whole time he's got one hand on the steering wheel and one hand on the shifter. It's incredible to think about. Even driving cars with manual transmissions around Monaco is crazy. And then to think that he had the kahunas and the skills to be able to drive it around one-handed. Just
to do it with a stick shift. Oh my God.
I know.
Different times.
Just absolutely amazing driver. You can't talk about Monaco without talking about Ayrton Senna. So I just wanted to throw that in very quickly.
Man, it's pretty crazy to see. And I think just kind of building up on the history of, people and the way that innovation is kind of changing the sport. This weekend during the race, Hamilton raced the fastest lap ever of the history of Monaco during got a fresh pair of tires and tried to do a fastest lap for a point, got it, and made a new track a record. So I think it's pretty incredible to see that every year people say the new regulations are going to make the car slower, and then after a couple of years of engineering touch and a little bit of magic, somehow the cars are the fastest ever again. So
no, regs change and it's they're gonna be about a second slower, and then you get 3 years into the regs and it's how are we 2 seconds faster than we were 3 years ago?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's always incredible to see that. Imagine a little bit ago, those records were held by V12s, screaming monsters. That's the only way they could do it. And now
a naturally aspirated V12.
V6 hybrid turbos can do it. And you're like, okay, technology has changed.
Yeah.
Great to see.
The contrast. We entered the 2000s still using big gas guzzling V10 engines in Formula One. And in 20 years, we've gone from V10s, the most gas consuming to pretty light on consumption power units.
Electric too. They got some electric units. It's crazy. So there you go. I think the sport's going in a good direction. Of course, what we've been seeing with those huge cars, it's going to change next year in completely new regulations. I think we can definitely do at one point this season an episode about everything that's coming, the new regulation, what that means. But it's not going to be tonight. I think we're going to wrap it up. We're going to we'll still have a podcast next week. You'll discover at that time what it's going to be about. Azerbaijan is going to be the next Grand Prix. It's going to be in 2 weeks' time. So next week, we're not going to talk about a single race because there's going to be no race this weekend, but we will find a great topic to talk about. And then in 2 weekend is Azerbaijan. It's going to be on June 5th, the qualification, sorry. And then the race is going to be the day after on June 6th. Last time it was raced was in 2019. Bottas finished first. So maybe his luck's going to change. It's going to change, right?
Yeah. And I think a nice little asterisk for this as well is Leclerc finished 5th and he just hopped on a podium, but didn't really get to hop on the podium. He was on pole. And Perez finished 6th. So, that's a pretty strong top 6. So
Vettel P3. Oh, well, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it kind of wraps it up for us today. Hopefully all of you guys enjoyed. You were able to see in the background from the light to the dark,
the light to dark transition.
So
I had that in my window last week too.
Yeah, there you go. As always, it was great talking with you, Wills. I hope everybody at home enjoyed our recap of Monaco. If I can wrap it up in one word, very boring race, but amazing results. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There you go.
I like it.
So thank you, everybody. Take care. Oh, before I forget, hopefully you guys are still listening. We're going to have a new intro today. You heard it already. Hopefully you're going to hear it as well in the outro. Made by my friend Patrick. So this is a shout out to him. Shout out to Patrick. Thank you for that little outro. Him and his brother kind of worked on the production, sent us a clip. So every week, hopefully we can bring something better to the podcast and improve. Make sure to comment, subscribe. There you go. I'm out of things to say.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you, everybody.